I'm really excited to be here. And I'm excited that if you found us and you're here with us at Sojo Action, you're someone who has an incredible vision of what's possible in this world. There is a lot going on in this world, and some of it requires a lot of justifiable concern. But there's also room for hope. And I derive hope from people like you, people like Sandy and our other colleagues who've been presenting this night, who believe in our communities, our society, and the future that's possible. Whatever domain you come from, you live in, work in, experience, I know that you have a deep wisdom on how to transform our world. So tonight, I'm going to do a very short but powerful training on communications to sort of help you get clear on what your message is, that message that's inside of you, and how to bring it forward. So we'll go to the next slide. So I've chosen two, we can go back one. Yeah, you can leave it there, sorry. We have two sort of areas that I really focused on, which is clarity and connection. I'll be really honest with you, this training is actually a 2-day training. So we're going to do it in about 25 minutes, but it's still going to have a lot of power because these are the two areas that I found has transformed my own speaking and those that I've trained, whether it be to be on a TEDx stage, or it's speaking in front of Congress, testifying, doing videos on social media. The clarity and connection are really cornerstones in telling a powerful message. So clarity, what is the clarity? So it's really owning the value of your idea, leading with that value, and inviting others to a vision of what's possible. Whereas we've been saying these past few nights, what's the new normal? These three areas of clarity really add up to a transformative leadership style that is really important. When we can really embrace the value of our own ideas and invite others into that possibility, we really are creating the future. Now the next slide, thank you. When we do the work of clarifying and asking ourselves the clarifying questions, we really have this chance to arrive at powerful answers that are clear that we can confidently share with others. It's very tempting to say, I know what I want to say, I know the issue, and skip this step. But if you really want to have an impactful message, it's really worth taking the time to do this. And when we value our own perspective, which is what we build up here, we're then willing to speak up for it. And more importantly, stand for the benefit of the idea that we hold so deeply that we're willing to be generous in sharing it consistently. And that's different about the style of communication. The kind that we're doing here at Sojo Action is about that generous storytelling. It's a sharing of something that really means to us. So we'll get that from clarity. Next slide. So I'm going to invite us into our very first exercise, the clarity exercise. There are 6 questions, and my colleague's going to drop that in the chat as well. And we're just going to take about 4 or 5 minutes to write some quick answers, the first things that come to your head around whatever issue means something to you. And the questions are, what do I really think about this? What do I see here that needs to change? What is my vision of what's possible? What do I need to share, or who do I need to invite so this vision is possible? What needs to be said that isn't being said? And what is the most valuable thing I can say in this moment? So we'll take about 5 minutes. You might only get a few lines in each, or if one really resonates, dig deep into that. But take a moment to pick an issue and go through this clarity exercise. We'll be using it later on in the workshop. So we'll do about 4 minutes. All right. Well, thanks for participating in that. We'll come back to the clarity exercise later on in the presentation. So we can go to the next slide. All right. So in our clarity, we ask these clarifying questions. We're really using our mind, getting ourselves to really think about our issues and what really matters to us. So now we're going to move to the heart and shift the energy a bit. Those clarifying questions really helped us get to the core of our ideas. And this will actually, the shift to our heart energy will help us create a message that resonates more deeply and allows us, our full selves, to be fully present. So I'm going to invite you to take 3 breaths now, which is a lot of fast writing and thinking. Take a breath in and let your exhale be a little longer. Really let it empty. And we'll take 3 of those, and then I'll invite you after that to contemplate a question. So 3 breaths at your own pace. And exhale, it's just longer. One more together. Want to know at this point what you see in the situation. What is the situation you see that's happening in your community? Let's reflect on this just with yourself. Reflect on what's happening in the society or the community that you really care about, and you have this vision for another way that's possible. So think the clear questions on what's the situation and how does it impact you or impact others? I'll just take a little bit to sit with that question. What really is the situation and how is it impacting you or impacting others? All right, next slide. So we're going to do shift in, trying to keep the energy of that breathing and thinking about others. I'm gonna teach you a technique called the perspective shift. And with thinking about the situation, people are being impacted, I'm gonna invite you to imagine that you're speaking to a group of people that care about the same situation, or they're the people that are impacted most about it, or your community, if it's that. Now I want you to think about what's the most challenging thing or the biggest confusion, misperception that people experiencing that situation or people perpetuating that situation have about it that are keeping things stuck. So think about what's this challenge, what's the thing that people don't really get that you understand, and you think that there's something different about. So take a moment, let that kind of sit in. And I'm going to invite you we're going to do the next writing prompt exercise together, which is based off this prompt here. Most people think or believe X, but in reality, or the truth is Y. So this is a perspective shift. It's a technique to kind of bring people into your story. So most people believe this, but in reality, it's that. So I want you to practice writing this sentence. I'm going to share two that I've used just to kind of get the example rolling. This is one that I've used and done a whole speech on in the past. Most people think that they have to go outside Christianity to experience an embodied feminine path. But in reality, the Christ path is a multi-dimensional energetic experience. Right? So that's the way I did a perspective shift. This was for a sort of a speech I was giving that was in a room that's kind of a high spiritual concept, right? So that's kind of one way I use this perspective shift. Here's another way, just another example from my own writing. So most people think a life-changing diagnosis is a betrayal by their bodies, but in reality, it's trying to save them, right? Most people think a life-changing diagnosis is a betrayal by their bodies, but in reality, your body is trying to save you, right? So that's a perspective shift. I've used that personally. I was casting a vision on what it would look like for people within church communities, to people who have experienced a healing and those yet waiting for a healing or on a journey to a healing. What would it look like if they worked in solidarity together? You know, and so that was the vision I was casting. What would solidarity look like between people with different stages of healing in a spiritual context? I've also used that same perspective sentence for doing healthcare reform. So what would it look like if we thought about some being ill was actually shifted to a safety mechanism, and what possibilities there would be for funding healthcare in a different way? So those are two examples. Take a few minutes now. I'm going to give you another 3 minutes to kind of play 3 or 4 minutes. Write as many as you can. Now's not the time to edit. Just practice with it. If you can get 3, 4, 5, that'd be perfect. It doesn't even have to be on the same topic. You can just brainstorm them out. So have fun. Work on your perspective shifts for a few minutes. We'll be using these later. All right. So when we made that list, I'd like you to kind of go back now and circle 1 or 2 that you think is the most important to share, or would have has the greatest perspective shift that you wrote. You're writing them quick. Just look over the list. Take a minute. Say which one felt like you were resonating. I've often, when I've had to do this, I have chosen the one that makes me the most nervous to say. So I'll be honest, that one about the life-changing diagnosis one, that was one of the scariest ones I ever had to sort of do publicly. And so I was kind of avoiding it. I knew that was the one I didn't want to say, which meant that was the one that probably had a lot of potency for me. So, so just go through a circle one or two. And I just want to remind you, really, when you share one of these perspective shift messages itself, hearing it, the person hearing it, they already are getting a transformational experience by experiencing your perspective shift. It really is a gift, both you're sharing with them in that moment, that one sentence can have a lot of power. You may have even resonated with one that I shared with you. It really sparks curiosity for others to want to hear and learn more. Even if you didn't fully agree or didn't want to know, probably were curious how I got to that conclusion. And I had like this boldness in saying the statement. So I'm going to invite you into a practice for when we leave this training. Over the next, few weeks, as we enter this holiday season, you can take this perspective shift question and try it out with friends and family over the holiday season. See how it lands. See what kind of conversation it sparks. I've often worked on refining my perspective shift by trying it out on people. So that's one of the ways that you can keep this moving forward. Next slide. So the next second key in storytelling in this authentic way is to really work on connection. In this era of social media, we all have really high radars for authenticity. The content's important in what you say, but really having people feel you is equally important. So we really want to work on connection in three ways: building connection to yourself, connection to your own message, and connection with others. You can move this next slide. So with connection to yourself, as I was saying, the substance is always important, but people need to be able to feel you, to be able to feel your message, and for that message to have impact. You need to be able to share yourself and your story. It's not just the words, it's you. You have skin in the game. You have heart equity in this. You have something to share here. And both of these things require that you have the internal safety in yourself to fully show up as yourself in your speaking, your writing, making videos, on stages, in meetings, all mediums. These techniques work in all ways that you have to show up in different rooms and get the privilege of sharing your story. Next slide. The next one is the connection with your own message. Really, this is where those clarifying questions really come back to support your confidence in the message. You understand how you got and what you believe and how you got there. It ups your confidence game 1,000% by spending time with those clarifying questions and cycle around them a few times. Here is where you really get the benefit of leveraging your perspective shift to open the question and open the conversation. You know that you have something to say that'll be interesting and that people will want to engage with. That automatically helps you feel more confident, and you begin to love and trust your own message. And building that trust in your own message is key. One of the ways that we've always taught around how to really build connection with your own message, this is your message, you and your message, is to really be committed to everything you say landing, because it matters. When you put that intention that I really want to make sure I'm heard because this matters, it comes through and people can respect and resonate with that. So being committed to everything you say matters. I know I have used this technique when I've been doing writing. And I've been writing, whether it's a book or an article, when I have that commitment, I want everything to land because it matters. My writing is far more impactful and I go through less drafts with the editors. All right, next slide. And the third is connection with others. We all have this when we do public speaking or message sharing, whether it's on a stage, whether it's with a congressional member, with our teammates in a work meeting. Sometimes we get that nervous loop come through where it's like, are they going to like me? What are they going to think? Do they think I'm smart enough? Am I coming across right? All of these me thoughts come, and it's anxiety and it's sort of this nervous loop. And so the best way to sort of shift out of that loop is to move your connection with others. So before you write or before you speak or make your reel on Instagram, which make me nervous, particularly when I do them in other languages. The question I always stop and ask myself is these three: who is this for? What do I want for them? And why does it matter? And just asking yourself the connection with the other people helps you break that loop. They can get in about your own thoughts and your own idea, and it really gets to the heart. So that really helps you connect, and your audience can feel that you actually care for them and the people that you're talking about. Next slide. So as we're rounding up this section, I know it's been a lot, but we did talk about in the first area around being able to have that internal safety. So I wanted to do this quick session, about another 5 minutes, called Energy Mastery and Safety. And we are now going to use our friend, the perspective shift, to help us with balancing the energetics of public speaking or sharing our stories. I'm sure you know this already, but when we share our stories, it has an enormous impact on our bodies. And then particularly when we're called to speak truth, it definitely impacts our nervous system. Usually we power through this feeling. Most of us were taught that in school. You just power through that feeling, or we put on a persona. I become Jessica, VP, speaker, and I'm just not that person. It's a mask. But with this type of messaging and what we really care and to build the future, we want to be able to share our own truth, our own mind, and our own heart. We don't want to do the persona kind. We want to do our type of presence. So we're going to use the perspective shift technique here to help us navigate the energetics of public speaking. So what's happening is that you're getting a lot of focused attention on you when you're about to speak, whether it's like here on the Zoom presenting or on a stage. You feel the energy of that focused attention on you, right? And your body feels this. It doesn't quite know what it is, and it registers a fear. And so what we need to do is learn to meet that. It feels like a wave coming at us. We need to learn to meet the wave, not run away from it. We have to shift to think this energy is actually here to support us. It's fundamental, largest shift you can do in your message delivery. Next slide. So how we're going to do is when that happens, the way to shift our perspective, it sounds easy, is you say yes to it and you welcome it. So when you start to feel that situation arising, say yes. Those of you who may have had a practice with contemplative practices, that welcoming prayer, it's like that. You welcome it. I often say for myself, I go, yes, it's right on time. I imagine myself being plugged into like the universal, the universe's power circuit. And now I'm actually being given the energy that I need to deliver something that matters to me. So I'm shifting this not as a fear of being too much, but I'm getting resourced right now to get the energy that I need to deliver what I need to do because I really care about what I'm sharing. And so this shift in perspective really helps a lot of people. And the only way you get it is by practice, like all good things. It's by putting yourself into that little uncomfortable position. It could be speaking up in a meeting. These could be, smaller stages. It doesn't have to be like a large TEDx stage, even though this works for that. It could be a really uncomfortable conversation, one-on-one. You have to you have to speak your truth. There might be some conflict. You start to feel that. So put yourself in some of those safe but uncomfortable positions to speak and practice feeling that energy arise. And as we practice being present with that energy, we then are better to transform it, transmute it. And then that way, when it happens, it is actually then seen as a resource. So when that energy arises, just, be curious about it. Be like, it's here, feel into it, see where it's present in your body. I often will feel it here, kind of in my chest, kind of come in. I say yes to it, and then I send breath to that area. I had a teacher once tell me, fear is excitement without breath. And that was one of the things that's like being plugged into the universal current of the cosmos. It's like, yes, okay, this energy I'm feeling, it's actually excitement without breath. Can I bring some breath to it and use that leverage excitement to sort of carry me through this message telling? So these are kind of the top connection and clarity tips that I have on sharing your story through a framework of rest and connection and authenticity, showing up as your full self. So thank you for coming along with it. I'm going to pass it on to my amazing colleague, Susanna Bean Jones, to talk about how this translates to our digital world.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I love those really practical tips to shaping our story. And I'm going to go over what it looks like to use social media as one place where you could consider sharing your story. that structure is really helpful for so many different environments. And this is one of those that I'm going to walk us through today. So I want to encourage you that you have a lot of power to influence other people on social media. So this was a study that was done around purchase behavior. So they found that consumers are on average 5 times more influenced by their friends and family on social media than large influencers when making a purchase decision. So you might follow some people that you love to see their content on social media, but they've got like thousands and thousands of followers. And it's easy to feel like, oh, those are the people who have influence on social media, not me. But the reality is you actually are much more influential than they are because you have that relationship to your friends and to your family. All right, so we're going to move into some best practices about creating content for social media. And we'll get a chance to practice what it would be like to share your perspective shifting statement in a video. All right, so why I'm talking about videos is because most social media platforms have really moved to video being the most important and the most shown content. So that's why we're talking about videos. And here are some best practices when you're getting ready to make one. So first, just basics is good lighting. We have a great example here in this image. If you're backlit by a lamp or a window, it's harder to see your face and expressions. And that's really where you're making that connection with people. So make sure you have good lighting. Doesn't mean that you need like studio lighting. You can be outside, you can be near a lamp, that kind of thing. The second is to make sure that you're captioning your videos. This is really important for accessibility. And I use the Instagram app for captioning most of our videos for Sojo Action because it has a really great voice to text feature that gets it pretty much accurate most times, and you can edit it if you need. And also a lot of us are using these apps without the sound on. And so that makes sure that you capture that audience as well. And then similar to what Jessica was talking about in terms of think about your audience and ask questions about who they are and what you want them to get from this. You want to talk to your phone camera when you're recording like this is a friend that you're talking to. Maybe you're FaceTiming a friend live. It's really easy. As soon as the phone comes in front of your face, you're like, oh no, I have to be very formal. But you don't. You can just be yourself and be really conversational. Also record on your phone vertically. Most of these social media platforms are operating in that format. So that's really important. And then get creative and have fun. I'll have a couple examples of how these videos can look. You can start simple by just one that you're holding up and it's one shot, but maybe you're going to do some kind of advocacy activity, like calling your legislator, and you want to record some parts of that process to show your friends, like this is how easy it is. I just called my senator. And so you can, on the Instagram app or other apps, you can easily have just short clips that you put together. So as you see what people are doing out there on social media, you can have a lot of fun with this. And then length, you really want to aim for 1 minute. And I know that's short. These are kind of the cap amounts for the various social media platforms, as far as up to 240 minutes for Facebook. But I'd encourage you shorter, and more succinct is more impactful. And people are apt to scroll away, unfortunately, if it's kind of a long, rambling conversation. All right, so let's look then into what do you say? So I love that perspective shifting statement because that really is your intro. You want to start with your main thesis and topic. It's got to be catchy. You've got to tell people what you're about, what you're doing, and give them a reason to stop and listen. So you can say that perspective shifting statement, and then 2, you're going to now deliver on what you just promised. So you've shared that shift. Now, maybe it's a personal experience you could share about maybe how you got there or why this is so important to you. And you're really going to connect with your audience through delivering something that's personal to you. And then 3rd, you have an option to add an ending phrase. We like to frequently invite people back to follow our content because we're creating lots like this. But for you, it might be maybe you're doing a series. You're talking about calling your senators, and you're talking today in a video about an issue that's important to you. And you say, I'll be back tomorrow to share what it was like to call my senators. That's an option for step 3. All right, let's look at some examples. So this is a reel from Angelia, who is one of our interns.
And this is part 1 of how I deal with eco-anxiety. A survey by the American Psychological Association found that nearly half of those under age 34 said that stress about climate change affects their daily lives. Eco-anxiety, generally speaking, is a feeling of worry or concern about the climate crisis. It can manifest itself as anxiety, stress, panic, fear, sadness, and anger. Many young people, including myself, feel overwhelmed by the uncertainty of what will happen if humans fail to address the climate crisis. It can be debilitating to even think about the future to the point where it disrupts daily life. So, how does one cope with eco-anxiety? Step 1 is acceptance that you cannot control everything. It may seem counterintuitive, but making peace with the fact that it is not solely your job as a single individual to solve the entire problem will make taking action a whole lot easier. Check out the Sojo Action page for a part 2 with more tips for handling eco-anxiety.
All right, so I love that example. Here are a couple things that I see that work really well on this reel. So she started right away, tips for handling eco-anxiety. So that says this is what the video is about. And she went on to deliver good information and one tip. She also ended with a there's more to come. So, check back. She's got some great lighting. She's very on brand. I love that she went all into this role and dressed with her Climate Action Now t-shirt, some nice on brand posters behind her. And she's very engaging and personal in her delivery. I'll critique myself. One thing that when I edited this reel, I forgot to put some text on the screen, which is a great practice to sort of put that thesis right on the screen of the video, just like I did here with Lowe's reel that says, come with me as I early vote. So that's something that I would change if I redid this. All right, let's watch Lowe's. So this is a more creative reel. So it gives you an idea of some things that you can play with.
I'm getting ready to vote. This year, I've actually decided to do mail-in voting for lots of reasons. COVID, lines, it's super easy. And so I've received my ballot. I made sure that I crossed off everything I needed to do and signed everything that I needed. And now I'm gonna go drop it off. Come with me. So before I left, I actually made sure to check where my ballot box drop-off location was. In the past 3 years, the ballot drops location has actually changed. So every election, I make sure to check exactly where I should be voting in person, where I can drop my ballots off, and quite frankly, just where I can go to ask any kinds of questions that I need to make sure that my ballot is counted and my voice is heard. I have just pulled up to the ballot box and I'm getting to drop mine off. This is the best part of early voting, is you literally get it out of your car, drop it off, and put it in. But really, this is the best part. Knowing that I've done my civic duty and it was that easy is amazing. And hopefully it's just that easy for everyone else. Continue to follow Sojo Action to see more ways to make it easy to vote, check your registration, and learn more about what's at stake at this election. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. So I love that reel from Lo. You can tell this wasn't scripted. She really was sharing her process. And to me, it feels very relatable, very true and honest. And I really feel drawn into that and the way she's speaking, and in her, choice of bringing us along on that journey of dropping off her mail-in ballot. Okay, so now it is time for you to practice. So I'm going to invite you. You'll all stay on mute, so you don't have to share this, but I want you to grab your phone and to do a first draft video of what it would be like to share and record your perspective shift statement. So remember, it's that most people think or believe X, but the reality or truth is Y. And just grab your phone, hit record. If for some reason you don't have your phone easily accessible, then just practice without that. Practice sort of looking at one point, smiling like it's a camera, and getting a chance to do this. I think so often, if this isn't something that's comfortable for us, it can be easy to never do it. And so this is your chance to just have the first draft and just try it out. So yeah, so we're going to do it. I'm going to put myself on mute because I'm going to practice it too, but y'all don't need to hear me do that process. All right, we're going to give you let's do 2 minutes and we'll all try it. All right, great. invite you all back. I would love, while I go on to the next section, to just drop in the chat just sort of how that felt. It's okay if the answer is that felt really awkward. That's fine. That's part of the exercise to get more comfortable with it. Or maybe you loved it, or maybe you unexpectedly loved it. So feel free to just drop a few words in the chat of how you're feeling there. And the last part I'm going to talk about is the power of you sharing your story to Congress on social media. So this is the stat that if you take nothing else away from this section of the training, that I want you to remember this stat. So this was a survey done of Hill staffers who work in Congress. And it said that 80% of staffers report that it takes 30 or fewer similar comments on social media to get attention. I'm going to say that again. It takes 30 or fewer similar comments on social media to get attention. That is not a lot. That's just a few more than we have on this call right now. So your power to make an influence and to reach out and share your perspective and share your thoughts, that is powerful. And Congress is listening on social media. I love this quote. We've definitely rethought a vote or taken a different angle based on what's happening in social. We've changed positions more than once based on what we've learned in social media channels. That's from a staffer who works in Congress. So how do you do that? First is to know the handles, the social media handles of your elected officials. We have a tool that can help you do that. It's at sojo.net/elected officials. And there it's going to actually list out who your specific elected officials are. And then they should have the handles there. If for some reason you're missing something there, you can always go to elected officials' website, and usually in the footer, that's where you'll find their social media handles. And then you have two options. Here's what you can do with a private account or a public account. So if you have a private account that only your friends and family can see, that's fine. You can follow your elected officials on social media. You can comment on their posts. And that is something, when you're interacting with their content, that's something that they can see. So that's a great first step. If you want to take that a step further, you could choose to have a public account. That allows you to be creating content, tagging them, and then they can see what you're putting out. So you might record a video that's like encouraging your friends in your region to reach out to your federal representative on a particular issue. And they're going to see that and be like, oh, interesting. So like, this is important to someone, and they're also mobilizing their community. And that can be impactful. Now, with a public account, I just always encourage people to do a risk assessment, whether that's right for you. Always be careful about, never sharing your location. If I take a video as I'm walking around, my neighborhood, I never post like any picture that has the cross streets of the signs where I live, that sort of thing. So do that risk assessment, but know that with a public account, you really have that opportunity to influence them on another level. So that can be a really great opportunity. Awesome. I'm just wrapping up, but I just want to go back to all that you wrote in here. I love Susan, you're feeling like you're getting into the flow. Alonzo, feeling like you need practice. Even for myself, as I popped on, I haven't done a perspective shift statement before. So I got through the statement and then I kind of fumbled as I what else do I share? So that, it's great to practice. Yeah, I love that you're realizing, you said it once, then realize, okay, I want to go back and try to say it in a different way. That's awesome. I love it. So I'm going to close out my section here just with reminding you that your story is powerful. And I want you to think of the power you have to influence your community and to realize that social media is one tool for sharing it.
Well, thank you so much for that. I know that this perspective shifts can be something that is so powerful. I work in the immigrant rights communities for such a long time. And what we realize is that many people think that coming to the US legally is a matter of filling out paperwork and getting in a line. The reality is that there are no lines for the majority of migrants to get into. So that was my perspective thing that I was practicing, and I hope to continue to practice. So this winter, as I head into the holidays, into the holidays, I will be sharing that perspective shift. There are no lines. Many people believe that it's just a matter of filling out a form and getting in a line. The reality is there are no lines for the vast majority of immigrants in the US. So we need to reform the system for that. I'll have an opportunity to do that, and I hope that you get an opportunity to do the same. I know that it can be hard sometimes to get that truth out there and to share the things that we advocate for. But as Jessica was sharing earlier, fear is just excitement without a breath. So excited to share that truth. Take a deep breath. Go for it. I'd love to hear as you share this perspective shifts, would love to hear, if you end up doing a video, post them on social media, tag us so we can see it, send them to us. We'd love to share them and lift them up as well. We want to see what you're caring about. So as we close out our time together today, I want to invite you to share what is one takeaway that you're living with from this session. And who might you practice your story with? Feel free to pop it in the chat. What aha moment did you have, or one takeaway that you're taking from this? Again, we want to thank you for your time and your commitment to be a part of this community. I believe that we are creating a new normal, and we are going to, with you sharing your stories, with us advocating and making sure that we are bringing our ideas and making them into policy like we were talking about yesterday, influencing all the agendas and the policy setting for these. We are going to establish a new normal where no one is afraid and every need is met, where the rights of the poor are defended, where those that have been pushed to the margins are brought to the center. And it's going to take time, but we are committed. So in January, I want you to come back again, late January, early February, TBD. But we are going to meet the 118th Congress. We are going to meet them. We're going to make some plans in here. I know that it is difficult as we see like all these changes happen, and we see like, is there a policy window? Is there an opportunity for us to be making change? But listen, the power belongs to the people. And where we are, we can make community happen. And there are many ways in which we can influence the ways that we live as a community and the ways that we make decisions as a community. So without any discouragement, I want us to come back in January and gather for the 118th Congress. We hope that you get to like draw from what is there, and that we can be beautifully connected into this next year, because social change only happens when we do it together and we have each other, and when we realize that every part of the body is moving in the way that it needs to move, it's doing its part, and where the other parts of the body are helping those other parts be all of the fullness of who they are. So thank you again for joining. Thank you to my colleagues. Susanna, Jessica, Lo, Reverend Moya, who are here. And thank you to each one of you for spending your evening with you. We hope that you enjoy your holidays, and we'll see you again in January.